When you're grading a feature, and this is going to be a theatrical release, what I'm doing is for the theaters on this. That is called digital intermediate, because what I'm doing, I'm grading something that's going to be actually, instead of taking this file, putting it on tape and having it air over the TV and you're going to watch it on a monitor, this is actually going to go to a lab, this file that I'm creating, and be recorded onto film, and then it's going to be shown in theaters. And that's called a digital intermediate, is what I'm creating. So this process is what we call DI. When you're doing digital intermediate, you're grading a feature for theatrical release. So you're starting with a file. It might be originate on film, but you're starting with a file, and it's going to end up back on film. And a traditional suite for that, usually people grade those on a projector. You have a much bigger grading suite with a screen, and you're able to emulate the look of the film a little bit easier. We're doing this on a monitor. We have calibrated everything so it works with the printer where we know we're going to send this file. But anyway, this type of workflow, what we're doing here is for a theatrical release. We get, the client has shot this months and months ago, last year. I mean, I don't remember. I think probably 6, 7 months ago they spent 7 weeks filming the material in this movie on the Red camera, which is the digital, the digital camera that's very popular over here, at a high resolution. It's a 4K resolution, that camera. They then just take proxies off that file, just low-res proxies. They put it into an edit suite. I'm not sure what they used for this. It was Final Cut or Avid. I'm not sure what they cut it on. But anyway, they've gone through and they've edited the movie using their material. Now what they've done is given us, from that edit that they did of the movie, they've created a list of all the shots and the time codes, the parts of it that they used, which they've now given to me. They've broken it down into reels, because that's how they show movies in the theater. You don't just give them one big piece of film. It's broken down into 20-minute reels. So there's 4 reels on this movie. So they've broken down the edit into 4 reels, this list of shots. It's called an EDL, Edit Decision List. They've given me that. I've imported that into my machine, plus all the material that they shot, or at least all the material that we need. And this machine performs a function called conform. So basically, it takes the EDL of reel 1, let's say. Here's all the shots that are in reel 1. Here's the order they appear in. Here's the parts of the material. You put that in the box. You point it towards where the material exists on my box, and it puts the movie together for you, basically. It just lays it out in order that it appears. So you can grade this in order. You can actually look at the way it's going to end up and grade it in the way it's going to appear in the final movie. Before, I used to just take whatever was on this reel, grade that. Whatever's on this reel, grade that. This actually conforms the spot so you can look at it in context and grade it. So that's what happened. They edited it, gave me the EDL and the material. I reconformed it here, and now we're going to go through and on each shot gets its own separate grade. Although they keep, like if 2 people are talking in the movie and they keep cutting back to the same shot, you could apply the same grade. You don't have to start from scratch, but that's how that works. The TV show is so we're sort of do this almost the exact same way we do some of the TV series that we do. We're doing a thing now called for Maria Verne, also shot on Red. Pretty much the same workflow. They give us the EDL, they shoot it, they edit it, we get the edit decision list, we load it into the box, we get the raw Red material, the R3D files, put those on the box, conform it, I grade it. The way the TV show works is I just kind of go through and grade it. I think what I think looks best. And then they come in and approve it or make suggestions. I make those changes, and then they come in and they approve it or make further changes. With this feature, the DP, the DOP who shot it is sitting with me from day one, and we're going through and setting all the looks, with him in the room, just going through it really fast, just like going through a reel a day, even more than that, just real quick. Let's just set a basic look, and then he's going to leave me alone. Let me go through and put in all the in-between stuff. And then he's going to come back and we'll fine-tune each reel, like probably take a day or 2 for each reel. But that's how it works. They shoot it, they edit it, and they give us, and then we recreate it here and grade it. And then we render it out into whatever format they need for whatever they're going to do with it. In the case of the DI that's going to go out to film, you render it in a much higher resolution than you would for TV. TV you render out, I think Maria Verne is probably the first HD thing we actually done that's going to air in HD. So we're rendering that out in 1920 by 1080. the files for this will be much bigger. They'll be 2K files. Then they get printed out to film. Probably one of the most interesting projects, and this is now going on a while ago, but the BMW company did one of the first real notable campaigns that was strictly designed to go on the web, that wasn't for air. As they were one of the first companies to really embrace the internet and make advertising, at least one of the first real big, well-designed ones. I don't know really how to say it, but they really committed to this project. One of the first really well-financed and really well-thought-out projects of this type, where it was more just an image-building thing. They weren't advertising a specific car. They're just trying to make BMW cool and have people talk about BMW. And they financed, the first package that I worked on was 5 films by 5 directors, notable directors, and they all had sort of a common thread through them. And the directors they picked was John Frankenheimer, Wong-kar Wai, Ang Lee, Guy Ritchie, and the last one was Inarritu Gonzales. I'm blanking on Alejandro Inarritu Gonzales. He shot the last one. So over a course of about it's just a couple of months that we did these. We got to work with all 5 of those directors, and in some cases their DOPs as well. Came in and we got to work on those films, and that was a really unique. To work with those directors anyway would be an honor, but to work with them in such a short space of time on something that sort of just came out of nowhere, BMW did it fairly quickly. I think David Fincher actually was executive producer on the whole project, and the editorial was right across the street from where I was working, and they had worked with me, and I ended up having this project fall in my lap, and it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of stories I could tell, but basically that was a great little 2-month run, 3-month run of working with these directors. It was John Frankenheimer. It was the next one was Wong-kar Wai, who had just done some really notable stuff in Hong Kong. Ang Lee, I think he was up for an Oscar at that point for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. In fact, he was doing pre-Oscar interviews that week while we were working together. And his DP was Fred Elms, who was a really notable DOP who shot some beautiful masterpiece films. And he sat with me for 4 days, so that was a master class. Let's put it that way. Guy Ritchie shot one with Madonna. He was married to Madonna at the time. He shot one with her in it, and he came in for a couple of days. I got to sit with him for a couple of days and talk to him and work with him, and that was incredibly fun. Alejandro, same thing. His was shot by Robert Richardson, who's Academy Award-winning DOP. He shot the movie JFK and I think Nixon and a lot of other great things for Oliver Stone and other directors. And so he was there, as well as Alejandro, who was there the whole time. So it was great just because, I mean, everybody, if they stick around long enough, will have stories to tell of famous people or notable people that they've worked with. But just to have those 4 directors and their DOPs in this short space of time come through these projects was really just a notable little time of that year or whatever, that project. Well, it depends on how you approach things. I don't really tend to. I mean, these guys are so successful and famous. I mean, they almost exist. The feature industry is almost a different industry from the commercial industry. I mean, people overlap, talent overlaps, and people work in both camps, but that's almost a whole different world from what I was working in. So to say that I mean, over the course of a project, you become friendly. You work in a room together with someone 8 hours, 12 hours a day. You trade a few stories, but it's not like I went out and hit a strip bar or something with these guys afterwards, or something. You know what I mean? We didn't go out to dinner together or anything. So there are some. I tend not to socialize. I tend not to socialize with a lot of my clients. I mean, things exist in a professional realm, and they sort of stay there. My friends are my friends. It's usually a lot of my friends. I mean, me personally, a lot of my friends are not in the industry. They're just whatever, musical buddies that I've been in bands with, or people I surf with, or whatever it is. Or people I work with in the company. But a lot of my clients, I don't, I mean, you might go out for a dinner or a lunch at the end of a long project, but as far as being friends with the guys and hanging out with them, I don't socialize with a lot of my clients. I think all of them, in their own way, are good people. I mean, in my circumstance, when I'm working with them, the clock is ticking. I mean, it's not cheap to work in these rooms. And this one is probably one of the least expensive. But some of the rooms that we worked with in Hollywood, the rate card was very high, and we weren't there to. They're not there to be nice. They're there to get the job done and make sure that you know what they want. And that's really, and you got to be able to separate the working environment from the social one. So when they come in the room, they're not there to be nice and make friends. They don't even have to be polite, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't want them to be impolite, but they don't have to say please, because at the rate that we're charging for our services, the less time you spend with niceties and nice talk, the more work's going to get done, and you have to respect that you're there to do a job, and they're paying you because they respect you professionally, or they wouldn't be there. So you already know that going in. So as far as them being nice, I mean, there are some guys that are very low key, and they surprise you with how cordial and low key and polite they are. But on the other hand, the ones that come in and just tell you what they want and don't say please and thank you, and I mean, most of them will say thank you, but people that come in, they don't ask you how you are or how your day is. They come in, they sit down, they go right to work. I respect that as much as any other type of behavior. I'm not looking to have people make me feel comfortable. I don't need that. We're here to do a job, and the more professional that, if you hook up on that realm, that's all you can ask for. Well, that BMW one was very notable, and that got me a lot of notoriety for years. Some of the music videos that we did at the time that we did them early on in my career, it's kind of funny to look back that far and think some of that stuff is your best stuff, but it really was, because there was no rules back then. And it was really young directors who have gone on to do great things, but we were just kind of making it up. And if it was taking the film off the machine and taking it out in the parking lot and beating it up and putting it back on the machine just for a look, we did that. We did that to the extent where our engineers banned it for a while, because we were doing things that were kind of detrimental to how the equipment worked. But I mean, if it's like taking your secretary's nylons off and putting them in the film path to get a diffused look, I mean, that's the kind of, I mean, that happened all the time, that sort of stuff. Let's take that, you're drinking a bottle of water, a plastic bottle of water, let's bust that off and put it underneath the film gate and see, and put the film underneath it and see, we're doing stuff like that all the time. And that was really, really fun, especially for a young guy coming up who had no preconceived notions of how things were supposed to be, because I hadn't really worked in the industry that long. We just made it up. They were making up what they did on these music videos, so it was wide open. And since then, I've worked on some really good features. I've done some great music videos on a lot bigger scale than when I started out. The budgets were much smaller, and then it got to be a big industry. So I mean, I've done some really well-acclaimed things, but I still look back at some of those early years when we were just making it up as we go along, and that was just really fun. There was nothing in it for anybody other than just pure pleasure, just seeing the finished project. There wasn't a lot of money in it. I mean, we make a decent living, but it wasn't like any of us were going to be famous or anything. We were just doing it for the sheer joy of, we liked music and we liked pictures. And we got to combine our two loves and just sit there all day and get paid to just create off the top of our heads, and just whatever anybody could think of. If I don't know, we need to do something with this shot. It's just, we need to come up with something. Hey, let me have that piece of paper, and we'll poke holes in it and stick it inside the rank and in the film path and see what that does, whatever. So I look back on those days as probably the most creative, fun things that I've done. But I still think the best years are ahead, because I think there's a lot of good things coming up. I think the potential of this workflow that we have now, I'm probably enjoying my job as much as I ever have. I'll put it that way. And I'm learning as much as I ever have learned. Well, I don't know what our rate card is here at the present moment. if we were sitting in a, let's say one of the top commercial grading suites in Los Angeles right now, and you were with, I won't say his name, but if you were with one of the top colorists who's in LA right now, an hour of my time to sit here and talk to you would probably be 1,200 American dollars. It'd be anywhere between 8 and 10,000 Swedish an hour. I mean, I don't know what the exchange rate is right now, but it would be pretty close to probably like 10,000 Swedish. If you were sitting inside a grading suite doing features in a theater, it might even be double that. You know, you'd be sitting there paying maybe 20,000 an hour to talk to a colorist that was supposed to be working on Pirates of the Caribbean 6 or whatever the current number is. But those are the kind of rates that they charge for the really top-end, high-end places. And the way that you get to that status is make yourself indispensable to the people that are creating the work, is get these clients to think that they don't want to use anybody but you, that you're their first call. And once you get to that point, and that's the hardest, that's the most valuable thing that you can learn as a colorist, is the fact that you don't work for the company that you work for. You work for yourself and you work for your clients and you work for an industry. And that's a really important concept to get used to early on. That clients can come in here and drive you crazy. I mean, they really can. I mean, they can just double team you on a day that you're having a bad day. You didn't get your morning cup of coffee, wasn't warm enough, and you're in a bad mood, and they have demands and they're driving you nuts. But ultimately, that's who you work for, or the people that are bringing their stuff in here. And to make them as happy as you can and make them think like, man, my next project, I'm not going anywhere else. That was perfect. Why would I go anywhere else? That's the key to being a successful colorist, is just making the people that bring the work in, making yourself an indispensable part of the work chain, that they just don't want to take their stuff anywhere else if they can help it. You're going to be their first call. And that's where you get to these situations where your rate gets up to those rates that I was telling you about. That the colorists that demand that, they have 3 people waiting. If they're working on a certain project, there's 2 people outside the door that would take that time if that person canceled. You know, they have people, they're booked 3 deep. They have second hold, third holds. You know, they're just people that, well, if she drops out, can we have your day? You know, that's how you get to that kind of a situation. You just make you make yourself invaluable to your clients.